Funky politics.
Funky politics. Funky politics.
Funky politics.
Funky politics.
Funky politics.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network. I am DC, sitting here along with my most capable co-host, Doc Ward, and we're living our best life, folks.
We're coming from the darkness to the light, out of the midterms now into the short terms, soon to be the long terms.
Yes, sir.
And nothing else left after that, huh? So, what did you think about the election, man?
I'm smiling right now.
Really?
Well, I'm smiling because I think we have a new day right now. There's just not one party controlling all of our federal government right now, right? Okay. So now we've got a House that is solid Democrat, right?
Right.
And so now
majority,
I think you got
Democrat.
Well, the majority, and I don't mean solid, but yeah, majority. So I think now you've got a little bit of a wall to push back because beforehand,
another wall.
Yeah, this one's not built. This one's not built with the money though.
Yeah, but I think it's going to cost me $15 billion all the same.
Oh well, no doubt. But you're absolutely
trillion,
right. But Doc, I'm telling you right now, I think we're looking at another day. I think we're just about to start living our best life because the Democrats are now going to start telling this president, you can't get everything you want. You won't have unfettered access to the mic anymore.
Yeah, but he just sat there and extorted them all in front of national television.
Well, that's
he
true
said,
too.
if you guys come after me, I'm going to get the Senate to come after you, which I thought was quite audacious because anytime a president says that he can control the Senate,
wow,
and make the Senate, because of the members of the party, go after another party or another house of government, you know, the president, that really flies in the face of a bunch of things,
yeah.
But more importantly, separation of powers, because we have representative or legislative officials, executive officials, and judicial officials. So if the executive is telling the legislative branch how to act and how to perform,
yeah.
Does that not corrupt government altogether?
Government is corrupted, Doc. Government is corrupted. But guess what?
What's that?
That's why
you gonna smile anyway?
I'm gonna smile anyway because there are some things that are moving in the right direction. We black businesses in this country, I think, on the upswing. Okay. We're going to be talking to a gentleman today. Brother Ron Busby, who happens to be the president and CEO of the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc. And Doc, let me tell you, man, you're a bad guy, man.
We're going to keep it buzzing with Busby and keep it funky and with Funky right here on Funky Politics, powered by
the Kazuki Network.
Kazuki 3.
Am I gonna sit there and argue with you over we had steak 2 days ago, I want chicken?
B.
I'm gonna be spicy all the time. I don't care if I'm single now.
C.
I think that the foundation is how you were brought up.
3 black chicks on the Kazuki Network.
DC.
We like to get a little funky on this show.
And Doc Ward.
Is it real or is it funky?
Funky Politics.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network. I am DC, sitting here with my co-host, Doc Ward. Doc, how are you, sir?
Man, I got the real right. I got the real.
You got the real?
I got the real.
Okay.
And I'll give you the right. You got the right.
Uh-oh.
Okay. But we got somebody today that's going to bring us the funky. The funky. The real down and dirty funky.
Who do we have, by the way, then?
That's usually what you tell.
Okay, well, you know what? We've got Ron Busby Sr., who is an entrepreneur, but also is a president and CEO of the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc.
Black Chambers, Inc.
That's right. Brother Busby, welcome to Funky Politics, my guy.
Thank you guys for having me on, man. It's really an exciting time. I'm glad to be with you guys.
We want to jump right into this thing because you are the guru when it comes to knowledge and I guess narratives that have been set out there in terms of black businesses in America. Let's talk a little bit about that. Have we as African Americans have we reached our full potential in terms of the for-profit and the non-for-profit sectors as leaders in our different sectors?
I will answer that and say no. And not that is a bad thing. I think for us, we are continually growing.
Right.
When we started the U.S. Black Chamber in 2009, there were 1.9 million black-owned businesses in the country. Fast forward to today, 9 years later, we have over 2.7 million African-American-owned businesses. So we are growing in number of black-owned businesses. And if you look at the trajectory of where we're heading, we set and established a goal for what we call Black Wealth 2020 and beyond, and our goal was to hit 4 million businesses Black-owned by the year 2020. So no, we have not reached our plateau. We obviously still have a lot of work to do in front of us on the nonprofit side as well. When the U.S. Black Chamber started in 2009, we had 6 chambers. Today we have over 138 chambers. We're in 36 states, including Alaska, and have over 300,000 members. But there are 2.6 million African-American owned businesses, so we too have a lot of work to do to grow. On the flip side of that conversation, we've grown the number of Black-owned businesses, again, about 700,000. But we've had some challenges and some setbacks as well, and some of that is also good news. We began counting the numbers of annualized revenue for those Black firms. They were doing about $75,000 a year. Actually, the number was $74,860 per year. That is not a good story at all. But if we fast forward and you look at where we are today, the average Black-owned business is doing less than $55,000, actually $54,000, roughly $54,400. And a lot of people say, wow, but I would also give you that there's some data behind that. Many businesses don't start January 1st.
Okay.
They start throughout the year. Yeah. So some of that annualized revenue has to be really materialized when it falls into place. And second thing, we know that when you start a new business, you really are starting from ground zero. Yeah. And so a lot of those firms brought the numbers down, right? Because we did have so many businesses growing, right? But we hope to also develop out of 75,000 to 150,000 by year in 2020.
Okay, but literally, I guess because there's nothing monolithic about Black business. There's definitely different types of business, and they are very diverse. But for purposes just of the general conversation, do you think that the growth rate from a financial side, as well as just from a general business side of African American businesses, is going along at a good rate right now, or is there a lot of work or a little work we need to do?
I don't think growing the number of businesses Black-owned is going to be our solution. If you ask corporate America, would they do business with Black businesses, they will say, yeah. If, in fact, there are 2 reasons that they hold against us. The first one being, well, we can't find you. I know when most of us are growing up, you say your audience is 34 and older, there was always an MLK Street, a Malcolm X Street, and you could find Black-owned businesses, brick and mortar shops where we could spend our money. Today, we no longer have those brick and mortar establishments, and many of our businesses are no longer on or in inner city. They now have the ability to open up their stores and offices and businesses anywhere from the suburbs to rural communities to inner city. And so the find is a challenge. Also, the size and scale. Most of our businesses are not mom and pop. They're mom or pop. And so for corporate America that is really trying to reduce the number of businesses that they do business with, but increase the size of those opportunities and contracts, it's even that much more challenging for Black business. So what I tell people as part of our solution, it's got to be a merger, it's got to be a joint venture, it's got to be even an acquisition. We have to put our egos aside. We have to learn how to do business together to grow our size and scale so that we can take advantage of some of these larger opportunities that are out here for American businesses.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kadukia Network. Brother Ron, let me ask you, and I want to kind of shift a little bit back to the fine piece. You know, you said we're not in the brick and mortar, but also there are a lot of businesses that we own that are either cyber-based, right? And some are at home. I guess I'm trying to figure out the virtual offices. So you have on the other side, they have done that for years. Is it a bad thing that we're doing that now, or is it a good thing in terms of expansion? I guess I'm trying to go back to where you're at in terms of trying to grow Black businesses, rather.
Sure. I think on the find side, or being able to locate Black businesses, it's always been a challenge. When our parents were growing up, we were forced to do business with us because those were the only option. But it was even difficult to find where it was safe to shop, where it was safe to stay at a hotel. And so we created what was then called the Green Book.
Yeah.
And a Green Book for black folk is where you could go that was safe, that we could spend our money that we knew was black owned. And so what the U.S. Black Chamber did was we created the modern day Green Book, and it's called the USBC Mobile Directory. And on any Android phone or Apple phone, you can download our mobile app free of charge, and you can find over 110,000 black-owned businesses. Those are businesses that are brick and mortar. Those are businesses that are virtual. Those are people that are operating their businesses out of their home, or businesses that have an incubator. And so being able to find black-owned businesses is really a challenge as well as an opportunity. And so what we've said is, and I say this all the time, you know, I live in Maryland. I live in Bowie, Maryland, which is the richest black county for African Americans in the country. But there are certain businesses that we don't have even in our community. And so when people say, hey, I want to go open up a business, what should I do? I tell them, go to the mobile app. Find the businesses that we currently don't own and operate in our communities, that we spend our money on, and think about opening that business. I say all the time, I get up each morning and have a bagel and a cup of coffee. But in the state of Maryland, the District of Columbia, and Northern Virginia, my options are limited to where I can go and buy a bagel. Black people buy bagels. Why not own a bagel store? So the challenges that used to be of old are now opportunities of the future.
Do we have mom and pop stores anymore on the corner?
Yeah, we do. There are places that you would not even know that are black owned.
Wow.
And so I don't want to to tell people that we don't own mom and pop. We don't own brick and mortar. In the past, we owned them pretty much in the same communities, and so it was easy to locate us. We are now have our businesses across the globe, so it's not as easy to determine where we're located. In reference to the businesses that we own, really we are across the board. I can't say that there is one particular business that we own more than others. We are over-indexed in the service business.
Right.
Businesses that require labor, we do extremely well in reference to numbers, but those aren't going to be the businesses of the future that have sustainability. But at the same time, I don't want people to not open up those businesses. I created generational wealth from an industry that isn't sexy, isn't necessarily one that people think about in reference to technology. It was a service-based business, and we did well for my father, myself, and hopefully we'll be around for my sons. And it was in janitorial and maintenance. I don't care necessarily about the industry as long as we're doing things that have sustainability, we're providing best practices, and we have a product and a service that is going to be around long term. We're not going in saying, okay, I want to open up the next 8-track business. We got to be in the industries that have sustainability, and those are healthcare, those are technology, those are home care, as well as education. Those will always be around in the future, but I don't want us to say, well, I have to go into technology if I want to open a business. That's not the case. We can do a myriad of things, and we can show that we can be successful.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network. I want to make sure that our listeners heard you correctly. There was an app you said that we can go to, because I'm sitting here right now. I'm going to pull it up in my app store, and I got an iPhone. So can you tell our listeners again what that app is?
Yeah, the name of the app is the USBC, United States Black Chamber Mobile Directory.
USBC.
You get that,
okay.
And you can go to my website as well at www.usblackchambers.org, BLACKCHAMBERS.org. You can download the app there. On your phone, you can go to the App Store and download it there as well.
All right. And since we're talking about that and we're talking about technology, as it relates to technology and as it relates to sciences, I mean, you said we don't have to go into it. Are those areas where African Americans are starting to see a certain amount of success in their businesses?
Sure. The great thing about the survey that we now know and the data points that we now know is that we have our largest 10% of businesses are doing extremely well, and they're growing, they're hiring, they're expanding, and succeeding. And so for our largest 10% of black-owned businesses, we've seen tremendous growth. And we've seen tremendous growth in the number of black-owned businesses. But again, the challenge right now today is to get the revenue up for those firms.
Right.
We've seen businesses doing extremely well in construction, not as much as in the past. We've seen businesses doing well in cybersecurity. And we've seen businesses doing extremely well, even now today, in technology, in reference to app development and servicing some of our larger corporations. Some of the challenges that we have is, though, you'll find a lot of our corporate executives are now at the point in their careers where they're leaving, they're exiting, and they're now becoming consultants. So they're doing pretty much the same thing they had when they were in corporate America. They took the package, and now they're on businesses. They're on their own business. They may have been an employee getting $200,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're bidding on the contract to do a similar service. The contract might be $100,000, maybe $300,000, but yeah, they got to pay their own taxes, their own overhead, their own medical, all of the costs and expenses of running a business, working more hours, making and bringing and keeping less dollars. And so for a lot of our folk, I'm saying, let's just make sure we're going into the right business. We don't need more consultants. We need people that can hire other people. The number one challenge in our community today is unemployment.
Yeah.
For African Americans.
Ron, let me stop you right there, because I want to put a pin right there, especially when you talk about that consultant versus a business partner and owning those particular businesses. Let me put a pin right there. We're going to take a quick break. We're with Ron Busby with us here on Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network.
DC.
You've come a long way from a kid in high school to the front cover of a bestseller.
And Doc Ward.
Fighting this war against principalities and realities and straight causing fatalities.
Funky Politics.
This is Ron Busby, President and CEO of the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc. on Funky Politics from the Kazuki Network.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network. I am DC, sitting here along with my trusty co-host, Doc Ward. Doc, sir, how are you?
Man, we're on fire today.
On
we're
fire.
on a roll, man.
I saw the fire. I saw the smoke coming off your hair.
Yeah, we are on a roll. I am the heat miser.
You know
bringing the heat.
You bringing the heat?
And Mr. Busby brings the fun.
Look, we got brother Ron Busby, who happens to be the president and CEO of the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc. And you're right. He's been bringing some heat for us already. Just talking about a little bit of the narrative on black businesses in America. But we want to talk about Ron Busby Sr. and how you got to where you're at right now as a president and CEO of the U.S. Black Chamber, Inc. Where did your journey begin, Ron?
Well, let me start by saying, man, first off, thank you for having me on here. When I begin, I usually acknowledge my mother and my father.
Gotcha.
I was blessed to be born with both parents in my life. My mother was an educator as well as a minister, so I consider myself pretty smart, and I know my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
All right.
But at the same time, I had a father who was an entrepreneur, so I saw him make payroll and grow his business, but he was also a Black Panther. So I'm about business, always have been. I know how to get things done. I know how to make sure that it's spiritually correct, but as a community, I make sure that I advocate and never apologize about who and what I'm speaking for. So with that in mind, I grew up in a community where we controlled most things. I grew up in Oakland, where all of my education was by black teachers. I left Oakland, went to college. I went to Florida A&M, which was an historically black college. I left there. I went to Clark Atlanta University, which was another HBCU, and pretty much only knew African Americans in my life. Then I moved into corporate America, and I remember working at corporate America for various companies, IBM, Xerox, Exxon, and got an opportunity to be an executive VP at Coca-Cola. And when I was there, I used to work 7 to 7. Got to work at 7 a.m. each morning and didn't leave till 7 p.m. each evening. And about 4 months into my career, my supervisor called me in and said, "Hey, Ron, pack your bags." And I'm thinking, I'm getting ready to get fired. And he said, "No, man, I want you to move into Joe's office." Joe was a 56-year-old white guy that had been working at Coca-Cola for about 30 years, knew his clients, knew his customers, knew the business and the industry extremely well. That day, I decided I needed to leave. I needed to find an exit strategy because Joe used to work from 9 to 5. And I said I didn't want to work for another 30 years, only have to be reporting to someone that was able to work 4 more hours than me. And so I left there. I went to go work at Coca-Cola. I worked at Coca-Cola from 7 to 7 each day, and left and went to McDonald's and flipped burgers and cleaned grills and cleaned toilets to understand how to operate a business of my own. I worked at McDonald's for about 6 months. I had a younger sister who was an attorney, and she said, for the amount of work that you're doing for someone else, you can bring that technology, you can bring that skill, you can bring that effort home to our business. We had a janitorial service that had 5 employees at the time. My mother, my father, my 2 sisters, and me. We were doing about $150,000 in annualized revenue. I was making about $150,000 at my corporate job. I left my corporate job. I went back to the same bunk bed that I had when I was in the 3rd grade because I had a vision. And I grew that $150,000 firm annualized revenue with those 5 employees to the largest black-owned janitorial service in the country. We had over 700 employees, and we did over $22 million a year. So I say that because I've been a corporate executive, I've been an entrepreneur, and then I had the opportunity to move to Phoenix, Arizona, where I ran a Chamber of Commerce. And I took all of those together to create what we now know as the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc.
And that's the journey.
And on the second day, there was like,
God. So brother, what ain't you done? I mean, shoot, man, come on here. What? And then you end up in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
I got to Phoenix for some great reasons, but also some huge challenges, man.
Yeah,
I moved to Phoenix in 2000 because I had sold my first firm, was doing extremely well, and could not do business in any state that I was currently doing business in. We were across the country, but we didn't have any business in Arizona.
Yeah.
I loved to play golf. It was warm there all the time.
Yeah,
I moved to Phoenix in 2000. I was flying back and forth between Phoenix and Oakland each week. 2002, July the 7th, I get a phone call saying, "Hey, can you come pick?" I was married with 2 kids, 2 boys. Went to go pick them up on a Thursday. They were going to stay with me over the weekend until Sunday to take them back to school on Monday. Get a phone call on July the 9th, which was a Sunday afternoon, from my mother-in-law that said my wife had just died.
Oh, wow.
Now I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't know anybody.
Yeah.
I don't have any infrastructure to raise kids by myself. I don't have a business at that time. But I had been involved in the Greater Phoenix Black Chamber of Commerce and Pilgrim Rest Baptist Church. Right. And those 2 entities gave me the guidance and the ability to be a servant leader to take on what is now known the U.S. Black Chamber. It was 2008, and many of us remember as black people how excited we were in 2008 about change, and yes, we can.
Yes.
And I had been in Phoenix for about 9 years. I just said, there's got to be something else out here for me to do, Lord. You know, I felt like Satchel Paige. I was like, man, just give me another inning, Lord. I can go pitch one more. And on a Sunday, about a week later, I got a phone call that offered me the opportunity to come start the U.S. Black Chamber. I had been in Phoenix, Arizona. I had ran a large janitorial service where we actually had the janitorial contract at the Cardinal Stadium. Mm-hmm. Another contractor there was John McCain's wife's Budweiser distributorship. She had the Budweiser contract there. We got to know each other very well.
Wow.
Actually, their grandson and my son went to school together. They were in the same class. In 2008, my son, who I love, extremely smart, very personable, he's going to necessarily be one of our leaders for our country. He said, "Dad, I'm going to run for president of the school." And I said, "Well, son, I love you, but John McCain is running for president of the school, and his dad is running for president of the United States at the same time. Son, I love you, but I don't think you're going to win this one." John McCain got signs all over the school, passing out cupcakes and buttons and pens.
Wow.
He said, "Yeah, Dad, but I got a strategy." And I said, "What's your strategy, son?" He said, "Well, I'm going to concentrate on the 3rd and the 4th graders, possibly the 5th graders." I said, "Well, 3rd and 4th graders, And fifth graders, they also like cupcakes and buttons and pens. And he said, yeah, but nobody's talking to him.
Oh,
John
wow.
McCain, we called him Trey. He's not talking to them. He's only talking to the sixth graders. I'm going to find out what the third graders want, what the fourth graders' needs are, and what the fifth graders' concerns are. And I said, yeah, okay. Well, fast forward a few weeks later, my son ended up beating John McCain III.
Get out of here, man.
I had been working on the campaign for Obama at the time, and I called Barack and I said, guess what, man? A black man can't beat a McCain. He laughed. He didn't forget about us. And when we moved to Washington, D.C., he embraced us and gave us the tagline of the voice of black business. And so we have been here in Washington, D.C. since 2009, unapologetically being the advocate and the voice of black business.
From tragedy to triumph.
There you go.
Wow.
Like a phoenix from the ashes. Huh?
Yeah, literally. Phoenix.
We are being preached to today.
Man.
I mean, we really are.
Well,
We
yeah.
really are. We really are.
So your son started the whipping that John McCain was going to get. You know, so you can look at it that way, right?
Telling you, man.
Well, John McCain was a friend of mine, has been, don't want to
Yeah, no.
bring any ill will to
No,
him.
great
He's
man,
been
great
a
American.
leader for the, great American, great leader for the state of Arizona, great leader for the country, and actually gave me a lot of opportunity to lead. And so I don't know about my son beating up on him, but I know they definitely made some opportunities available, John McCain and his family.
Well, when you talk about chambers now, we know that there are several across the country. Where are some high performing chambers, and where are some that serve as the national, or that would be the national model for what your efforts are?
Great question. When we began in 2009, man, we had 6 chambers. We had Phoenix, we had California, Texas, D.C., Michigan, and New York. Today I have over 138 chambers.
Right.
I'm in 38 states now, and I have over 300,000 members, paid members of black businesses, both small, large, and in truly every sector. Some of the states are doing better than others, and that's just based upon history. Before there was a white chamber of commerce or an Asian chamber of commerce or a Hispanic chamber of commerce, there was a black chamber of commerce. First black chamber of commerce was founded in 1928 in Dallas, Texas.
Wow.
That chamber is still in existence and is still doing great work. What we were able to do is to bring a great deal of those chambers under our umbrella, and I think we were able to give them some best practices so that we could have a better impact around the country. The first thing I noticed when I moved to Washington, D.C., man, is that I remember taking a bus tour my first weekend here, and I looked on the license plates and read taxation without representation.
Still does.
Still does. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what black folk been for decades. We've been paying into a system that hasn't represented our best interest. That no disrespect to any of our older established organizations, the NAACP, the Urban League.
No, you done called names, Doc. You done called names up in here. Hold on now, preacher.
I let him be funky, man.
Go ahead, be funky.
Let him be funky.
Yeah. The Urban League was created to teach people how to get jobs,
Right.
and to own homes.
Right.
NAACP was created to make sure that we had legal representation, and it was created by, no disrespect, but by white women. National Action Network, and we love all of these organizations and their leaders, and we partner with all of them. But they're there to make sure that when harm is being done, illegal action is being done, that they have a voice. But nobody was talking about business issues. Nobody was talking about economic conditions.
Well, I think a lot of that, though, if you look at it, though, historically, a lot of that was because the original frontier was just civil rights or human rights, and we often talk about Martin Luther King on the path for trying to get to economic equality, but unfortunately, he was assassinated before that aspect got fleshed out.
If you listen to Dr. King's last speech, and as a community, we get caught up on the last 13 minutes of the speech.
Right.
But if you listen to the first 3 minutes of the speech, he says this.
All right, go
He
ahead.
leans back to Reverend Jackson. He says, Jesse, what's the name of that bread company? Jesse says, that's Wonder Bread. And Dr. King says, well, if Wonder Bread don't treat us right, we going to stop buying Wonder Bread.
Yes, sir.
Yes, it does.
Jesse, what's the name of that cola company? And Jesse says, that's Coca-Cola. And Dr. King says, well, if Coca-Cola don't believe in supporting our communities, we're going to stop buying Coca-Cola.
Yeah, right.
Dr. King understood the value of the black economic dollar.
Right.
We've lost that conversation now and trying to make sure, and no disrespect to any other conversation, but without a fair shot at having an economic agenda, there's no such thing as a social agenda or criminal reform or better education. It all starts with policy. And policy is created by folks that have the money. And if our community doesn't have funding, we're not going to be able to make sure that we have a good voice there to make sure that we have policies that are created for our best interest.
You're listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kentucky Network. Am I hearing you correctly? Are you saying the backbone of all of this, or the foundation of all of this, is the black business community building up and supporting and funding? Or am I hearing something else? I might have fell asleep, Doc. I don't know. When he was preaching, I don't know. But that's
United States was founded on a capitalistic system.
That's correct. That's what I thought I heard.
So, if we're not having capital conversations,
right,
we just talking to each other.
That's
not a language that the United States government understands. We speak in Ebonics, and they speak in a whole different conversation here. And so I just say, a lot of folk talk about the $1 trillion that black folk have.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about the $1 trillion spend that we have every year, but that ain't us saying that. That's white folks saying, black folk got $1 trillion. How we gonna make sure we get that? But when we see the power that we have in that $1 trillion, we can flip the conversation. And we have all heard the statistics that black dollar is about the 15th largest country in the world. But we just see ourselves as a microset of America versus a microset of the world. And when we start seeing our dollars in that vein, man, there's nothing we can't do. The number one concern, which we had talked about earlier before we interrupted, was unemployment. There's, this afternoon, 2 million unemployed black folk walking around. And believe me, if this administration stays into play, it will be a full employment conversation. But it may not be the jobs that you want. They may not be paying what you've earned, but you're going to have a job. The good news is there's 2.7 million black-owned businesses. So I say simple math is if each one of those black firms can hire one black unemployed person, I don't care who's in the White House. I don't care what the government's budget is. We have $1 trillion of spend power. We have over 2 million black-owned businesses, and we have folk that are spending money each and every day. If we just collectively change our mindset from just consumers to educated consumers, and we have a better chance of having sustainability within our community.
Let me, Brother Busby, we got to stop you right there. We got to pass the tray here at some point, because if I don't get these folks before they start leaving out of here, they ain't gonna leave their money preaching. Hold on right there. We're gonna come back to Brother Ron Busby right here on Funky Politics, powered by the Kentucky Network. I like the way he said funkying around.
Yeah,
that's what they're doing.
I did like that, but he said the older.
I'm gonna start using it.
He said the older electorate is funky.
Well, basically, it's what he's saying. He's saying that
midterm elections funkying around,
and that's true
with our future.
Because it's noted. And I think you absolutely
don't let
midterm elections.
Don't let them funk up the future.
Oh my God.
I'm your host, Cynthia Daniels.
And I'm your co-host, Williams Brack.
So we're going to be interviewing business owners about their journey. What made them leave their 9-to-5 and just go out and create their own brand?
Grind Fed. We got the funk. Funky Politics on the Kazukian Network.
Listening to Funky Politics, powered by the Kazuki Network. We're back with you. I'm DC, along with Doc Ward, and we're talking to Brother Ron Busby, President and CEO of the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc. A brother who's got a story, who's been telling this story, and who's been laying it out.
Talking business about business.
And talking life experiences as well, too.
There you go.
From tragedy to triumph is how we get there, right?
Right.
So, Brother Busby, we want to go into one thing in particular. On this show, if we don't talk about inclusion and diversity and minority spins and all, and I know you see this on a daily basis with the Black Chamber and the businesses that are members. Are we there yet? Has America gotten to the point yet where we're ready to absolutely put our money where our mouth is, and we're really ready to help build up black businesses? And if not, what sectors of the country is doing better than some others?
Well, great questions. I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago with majority firms, and there was a consultant that was hired to do some research. This was at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, who is one of the most conservative organizations in the country and represent several thousand of the Fortune top 100 firms in the country and below that. And a statistic was shared that $2.1 billion had been spent in 2017 on diversity inclusion. Not supply chain, not contracts, but the conversation, the research, the study. I think corporate America now is befuddled on how to address diversity and inclusion. Diversity and inclusion at one time meant we're going to give some contracts to black firms. Right. Then it was black and brown firms. Right. Then it was black and brown and women firms. Then it was black and brown and Asian and Hispanic and now gay and lesbian. And diversity is a huge net now. And it is a conversation that is going on. And so when you start talking about diversity spend, corporate America as well as the private sector and public sector are now saying, oh yeah, we count our diversity spend and we're doing extremely well. You'll find that many states and agencies are touting over 25% spend. But when you really start to peel back the onion, and you start to look at sectors, you start to look at geography, and you start to look at gender and race, then you get a truer story. And in most of America, that's been with black firms, and that's across the country from north, south, east, and west. Most cities, states, local municipalities are spending on average less than 2.5% with black firms. Now, there are parts of the country here in Maryland, District of Columbia, even certain parts of Northern Virginia, where because of the government mandated spend, black firms are doing extremely well. And there are some places in the Midwest, in the mid part of the country, where black firms don't even exist. And then you can start looking at some of our top 10 firms in the country, white firms, and you'll see that their spend with black companies is less than 1%. Some of our best companies in America are spending less than 2%. I don't necessarily want to call anyone out.
No, you don't do that. No. Right.
But it is a conversation that has changed. I remember when I was in business back in the early 90s, where diversity really was about local, and it really was about black and brown. But now the conversation is really not just national, but it's global. And the spectrum goes from Asian to folk that are coming in from outside the country that are also being looked upon as minorities.
Ron, let me stop you right there, brother. Because my question now is, if you have, and I don't want to call this this particular company's name, but we drink a lot of it, and it's in a red can. So you tell me that if the market share with that red can, and you got 50% of people that buy that product is black people, then why can't you do at least 20% of minority spend with black folk? I ain't talking about them other people. I'm talking about black people. Why can't you do that? Tell me why you can't do that.
Let me give you a real answer, and I'm not trying.
Don't give me the academic answer. Don't give me the motherfucker answer.
I'm gonna give you a break.
All right.
I'm gonna give them a break because some of the folks, the companies like the Red Can, or some of the phone companies, or some of even the banks, say, man, we want to do more business with black folks, but because of some of the limitations, we don't have the firms to be able to source them. Honestly, we have. I get opportunities come to me literally daily. And I run the U.S. Black Chamber. supposed to know all the black firms in the country, and we still have challenges filling some of the voids and some of the opportunities. 45 years ago, Black Enterprise started doing the Black Enterprise Top 100.
Yes, I remember that.
45 years ago.
Yes, sir. Remember that.
There are only 2 black firms today, Black Enterprise magazine being one of them, that was on that list 45 years ago. Our firms that do extremely well have matured off the map, meaning they didn't have a succession plan. They weren't able to pass it on to a daughter or a son, because a lot of our businesses were in service businesses, or they were in businesses that no longer exist. A lot of them were doing business with the auto industry, and the auto businesses changed its model. A lot of them were doing business with the government, and the government has changed its model. And so the folk that own the red can have made a huge commitment, but sometimes they're challenged from their business model on finding black businesses that they can do business with as well. And so I tell my businesses all the time, man, let's get together and buy other businesses so that we can do business together. I got to a point where we were the largest black firm in the country, and I did not know how I was going to get to that next level. And so I ended up reading a book. The name of the book was Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun?
Right.
It was about Reginald Lewis, who was the first African-American billionaire. And he got there because he acquired a firm. He bought a firm. And so we have to start thinking about new ways of being able to play, because I tell young people all the time, we don't need more startup businesses. We need folk to go and bring 2 and 3 ideas together to make one large firm. We need more young people to say, I want to create this widget, but I know that there's already a person that's out there that has a widget manufacturing company similar to that idea. Go volunteer for them. Go bring your skills and technology and latest education platform that you just left, the social media, all these new tools. Bring them to some of our medium-sized black firms now. See the growth that those black firms will have, and then one of 2 things will be able to happen. Either they will hire you, or they'll turn that firm over to you. I went to go work for my father's business, and in 2 years, 2.5 years, my father said, oh my God, we've grown exponentially. I don't know how to manage this firm. I'm going to turn it over to you so that you can continue to grow it.
Wow.
He didn't let his ego get in the way, and he knew that we had the opportunity to do exceptionally well, but it wasn't about him, it wasn't about me, it was about the longevity of our company as well as our community. And when we start seeing that, we can do this. I'll say this also. African Americans have to start seeing themselves that way. There's this old myth that used to be out there that said white folk ice was colder than ours. And if you're old enough, you may have remembered this. Before there was ice boxes.
Yes, sir.
And you could get a block of ice delivered to you and put in your ice box, and it kept your fruits and meats and produces fresh for 7 days. And my grandfather used to deliver his ice, and he would deliver his ice to his white clients first. And their ice used to keep their fruits and vegetables good for 7 days. By the time he got to his black neighborhoods where we live, that ice had sat on that truck all day. So by the time he put it in our ice boxes, it had melted down and it chipped away, and it was only good for about 5.5 days. So there was some truth to the myth back then that white people's ice was colder than ours. But I tell my grandfather, Daddy Ray, I said, because of a black man, we created the refrigerator and the ice maker. So there ain't nobody's ice colder than mine. Matter of fact, I can get crushed ice, cubed ice, flavored ice, filtered ice,
shaved ice, and all
ice.
that kind of ice. There you go.
I can get shaved ice. And when we start seeing our businesses, our communities, our dollar, and our education platforms in that same vein, again, I say, I don't care what white folk are doing. I don't care who's in the White House. I care about making sure that we have products and services that we can support.
There you go.
And that's the final word from the one and only, the President and CEO of the U.S. Black Chamber.
It has been spoken.
It has been spoken by Brother Ron Busby Sr. Thank you there for coming and speaking with us there, Brother Busby, right here on Funky Politics, powered by the Kazukian Network.
Can I end with one statement and ask a favor of your audience? I don't know when this is going to air, but I know a lot of folk have been talking about making America great again over the last 2.5 years.
I talk about it all the time, every day. Go ahead.
And I say, ain't nothing wrong with that. Black folk want America to be great too.
That's right.
But in order for there to be a great America, there must be a great black America.
Mm.
And in order for there to be a great black America, we got to have great black businesses. And in order for there to be great black businesses, we need black people to support those black businesses. And we need black people to support their local black chambers. Find out more information on us at www.usblackchambers.org. www.usblackchambers.org. Would love to be able to come back on your show again.
There we go.
And there you have it there. Ron Busby, Sr., CEO and President of the U.S. Black Chambers, Inc. Thank you for visiting with us right here on Funky Politics, powered by the Kazukian Network.
DC and Doc Ward on Funky Politics. Riffin' on Jazz.
This next gentleman we're talking about has an unforgettable voice.
My sugar is so refined.
Jazz was the happiest.
Now,
Calloway went to my school.
Oh, really?
Yes, he's not an alum because he didn't graduate. He has some gigs to do.
Riffin' on Jazz on the Kazukian Network.
Funky Politics brings it to you real, right, and funky every day because we know no other way. The Chinese have a saying, may you live in interesting times. And it's not necessarily a good connotation. It means more or less, may you live in times where there's always so much business and busyness of things going on that it confuses you, confounds you, and leaves you without hope. But I can tell you right now, even in times where we may be confused and may be confounded, because we live in the age of Chief Petty Officer Donald J. Trump.
Oh, wow.
We are not, and we never will be, without hope. Because we'll always have people that will come and bring us something to let us know that in the midst of the pettiness, up comes progress. Thank you, Ron Busby, for that message today.
That's right. The U.S. Black Chambers, Inc.
Absolutely.
They're putting the work in, man. They're putting the work in. They're
putting the work in to show and prove that they are the show, and prove that African American businesses are not just on the move, but they are the move. All we need is a little self-confidence and a little activity, and there's not anything that we cannot accomplish. So, as I said before, we live in the age and the times of Chief Petty Officer.
I like the way you say that.
but
that's right.
We have to be the commanders and the generals and the admirals of our own destiny.
That's right.
So focus on that, and there's no telling where you may end up. And no matter what you do, keep your head to the sky, keep a prayer on your lips, and always keep it real, right, and funky.
Funky Politics, recorded at Kazukian Studio, directed, produced, recorded, and distributed by Kazukian.